royalty king on compliments, charisma and advertisements. Still they see him shimmer, ephemeral. It ain't supernatural, no. It ain't supernatural, supernatural, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Music is the Drug, the Cowboy Junkies podcast. I'm Dave Bowler and I wrote the biography of Cowboy Junkies, Music is the Drug. As part of the Nomad Series back in the early 2010s when the world was still young, Cowboy Junkies released Timmins, an album of cover versions of songs by Vic Chestnut, who died on Christmas Day in 2009. One of those songs was Supernatural, a delicate treatment featuring Jeff Bird on mandolin. Alan Anton might have had a watching brief on the recording of this particular tune, but, like all the band, he was a big fan of Vic's and very keen to put the tribute record together.
Yeah, we did a couple of tours with him, and we're huge fans of his. After we'd played with him for the first time, and became friends, and so we're well aware of his whole catalog when he died, and that's why we had immediately the idea that we have to do a record of all his songs.
And that must have been an interesting experience following him on stage, because he's not a support act in the sense of a normal support act. He doesn't make any concessions, does he?
No, he doesn't. The amazing thing about Vic is he would size up an audience pretty quickly, especially as a support act, and he wouldn't give in any. He wouldn't necessarily try and win them over. He wouldn't pander to them, I guess is what I'm saying. It'd be like, I'm here to play my music. If you want to listen to it, fine. If you don't want to listen to it, well, that's okay too. But if you're going to really ignore me, then I'm gonna play with you, And so some nights he was, the audience would get it, and he'd just absolutely be spectacular. And other nights, he'd always be spectacular, but maybe in different ways. He'd really dig into songs, and his voice could get pretty on the edge, and he would just emphasize that side of it. And he was great to watch. Again, no fear. He had zero fear. So that's always an amazing thing to watch from an audience's point of view, or certainly from side stage. It's always great to see somebody like that.
Yeah, he's very humorous though, which is good. Biting humor for sure, but still funny guy on stage. And yeah, to see him live, if you've never seen him before, I don't know what you'd think really, because his depends what your musical tastes are, I guess. You'd either love him or hate him. It's one of those kind of voices and writers,
Selecting the material from Vic's vast catalogue wasn't an easy job, but the band paid real care and attention to selecting the songs that they could really do justice to, as Michael Timmins explains.
Well, it was difficult. We recorded a lot of songs for this record because we really weren't sure how to approach them, and how to approach the songs, and we didn't really know if it would work. It was a real sort of stepping off the plank and just figuring, okay, let's just try this and see if we can put these songs across, because Vic, Vic's a brilliant writer, or was a brilliant writer, but he's a very unusual writer, and I think a singularly unique writer, right? Like, I don't think anybody writes like him. In some ways, he's like John Prine in a way, in that he uses words and phrases that you sort of feel only he can deliver, right? With his attitude and his voice and his playfulness, and every one of his songs seems to have that sort of something in it that's like, I would never write that. I'm just trying to think in this song.
Sudden smell, a certain view, sparks a warp in case of the deja vu.
Like, like who would write that in a song? And it's a pretty serious song. And but he puts it across. So when we went to choose these songs, I think we chose like 15, 16, 17 of them. I think we recorded that many too. And because we weren't sure what would work, we weren't sure what Margot could put across. It's her job to put across the lyrics. And but it just really worked. I think Margot really dove into the project, and she was really determined to honor Vic and to make sure that she properly interpreted these songs in her own way. And so when it came down to actually choosing the songs that went on the album, it was hard because we had a lot of songs. So we had, but it was, that's a good problem to have. So that's how we did it. Everybody chose songs. Everybody just chose songs, brought them in. I even asked, I think a few people from outside, like Jason Lent, who's helps us with a few things and is a fan of the band. He sent in a couple of songs, and he said, I think you guys should, he heard that we were doing this project, and he sent in a couple of ideas. So, we just sort of went with everything. Anything that came in, we tried. And some most worked, but some didn't. But we had a lot to choose from when we came to sequence the record.
The contrast between Vic's voice and Margot's voice could not be much more marked, really, could it? I mean, in a way, this is a perfect primer to the Vic Chestnut songbook, really, for people who maybe get put off initially by his voice.
Yes, and whenever we do a Vic song, and we pretty much we still do a few of these in our live set, and we do Supernatural a lot. It's a regular. It's got a regular spot in our set, so we do it every few nights for sure. Margot always points to the songwriter, who's Vic, and she kind of cautions them. She sort of says, when you first come to him, his voice can kind of put you off maybe initially, but stick with it and listen to what he's singing about and listen to what's going on musically, and the voice suddenly makes sense. It's certainly everything kind of comes into focus. So yeah, he can be tough to get into. And you're right. Like I think Margot's voice is the exact opposite. It's sort of, it just sucks people in and lulls them in. And so it's I think one of our hopes was that our versions would bring people awareness to Vic, and then they would be able to find him on their own and begin to go deeper into his catalog.
In its way, this one is very archetypal. Vic Chestnut. I mean, a big chunk of it is about his accident, obviously his car accident that changed his life so much.
Out of body experience, I flew around the hospital room once, all intravenous Demerol. It was supernatural. No, it was supernatural, maybe.
But there's no sense of self-pity or mawkishness. It's a very, I mean, I don't know about matter of fact, quite the way, but you know what I mean. It's very dry, isn't it, in that sense?
Dry is the right word, I think. His songs are very dry. They're as I say, they're all filled with a certain amount of humor, whether it's the wordplay he does or making fun of himself or a situation or making fun of his audience. I mean, he's great at that. But it's always very dry. So there's nothing, you don't feel like you never feel like he's thinking he's smarter than you, or smarter than the listener. You feel like he's sharing his humor with you, right? He's sort of inviting you into it, and sort of opening up the curtains on weird little moments or weird little strange things in his life or in the relationship between him and his audience, or even in his songs. He's kind of he's not precious, right? So that's the beauty of Vic, and and this song is pretty serious song, and you can go anywhere with it as far as interpreting it, because it's all, like a lot of his songs, they're not, there's very rarely a narrative, and sometimes the situation is hard to interpret, but you get a sense of it, you get a sense of the song, and I think a lot of his songs are like that. So yeah, there's definitely never any self-pity in his songs. I mean, he was an amazing guy. Touring is very difficult. Touring the world is doubly difficult, and touring it in a wheelchair, which he did, is, I think, impossible. And I don't know how he did it, but he spent his life on the road in a wheelchair, and it was quite amazing, quite incredible.
The incredible Vic Chestnut. That's all for this episode, but we'll be back next week to shine the spotlight on another song from the Junkies catalogue. In the meantime, you can get all the details about ordering the band's upcoming new album, Such Ferocious Beauty, at cowboyjunkies.com. You can watch the video for What I Lost there as well, and the authorised biography, Music is the Drug, is available from the band too. The Junkies are back on the road with tour dates coming up all across North America in the next few months. Keep checking the website for news of the shows. Please subscribe to the podcast, like it, share it, add reviews, and spread the word however you can. We're really grateful for all your support. If you're a Spotify user, you can follow our growing podcast playlist. All the details of that and everything else is in the show notes. See you next week.
Is it inexplicable? It ain't supernatural, no, no. It ain't supernatural, supernatural, babe.